Welcome to Possum's Corner. Today we're talking about knowing you're saved. Knowing you're saved, what it's not telling yourself that you're good with God or that you're saved. It's not going through some sort of religious program and being certified that you're saved. It's not completing a catechism. It's not being baptized. It's not, I'm saved because I remember a day when God spoke to me and I asked Him into my life. That's crap. That's not it. As a matter of fact, you can't know that you're saved if anybody or anything other than God is the reason that you think you know you're saved. Knowing you're saved only comes from God speaking to you. In some kind of way, somehow, He's going to tell you in certain terms that you're His child. Recently had a guy that God said, you are enveloped in my love and in my covenant. What an incredible thing. God's going to communicate that to you to where you know God is telling you that you're saved, that you're His child. Except no substitutes. This is big, man. You can't cut corners on this one. Everything you do from this point forward, you need to know that God said you're saved. All right, so you've all heard the story. I ran into God and was cried out to Him from a deep place in my heart. God showed Himself to me, as I said before, and I mistakenly took that as His approval when it was merely the invitation. God was inviting me to a relationship with Him. I took that and I went on a rampage is a strong word, but I thought I was zealous for God. And from that point on, I just began doing what I thought would please God. So, if I knew that it was not good to smoke cigarettes, I would quit smoking cigarettes. Basically, it became years of religious game playing. I was not delivered from my sin. You remember when we talked about sin, sin pulls you. If the pull is not gone, you've not been delivered. And that's where I was, but I didn't realize what actually was happening. I kept doing the things that I thought made me right with God, and I was zealous for God. I wanted to tell everybody that I knew about Jesus. I was doing nothing but living life apart from God and throwing prayers towards Him. And it's sad. I did this for 20 plus years. So after all of these years of doing this crap, basically, we go back to the story of me putting my face in the seat of the recliner and crying out to God, realizing that something wasn't working. I knew there had to be more because I still had the pull of sin in my life. I wasn't delivered from daily sin. And I knew deep down inside that something had to be wrong. So I cried out to Jesus from a deeper place than I had ever known before, and He responded to me. He spoke to me, and I began to trust Him as He spoke different things to me. I would hear, trust, and obey one thing that He spoke, and then He would speak something else. And I would, just like everything we've talked about, I would engage Him in relationship until I got it. The thing that He was saying to me, I would get it and trust it and obey it. From one thing to another, from one point of hearing, trusting, and obeying to the next point of hearing, trusting, and obeying, from faith to faith. That's how the righteous live, right? And then at one point, I had a dream about, I was a guy in a subway, and there was another guy running all over my body with a heat gun. And he was, the revelation on the dream, it didn't bother me in the dream. The revelation was, it was about salvation. It was about burning my flesh. I was submitting to this, which is actually what I had been doing, hearing and trusting and obeying God from one point to the next. And I said, God, there was a question in my mind, was that me, right? I said, God, is that me? I want that to be me. I want to be your child. And then at the time that we had the Undone album, which was one of the first ones, I think, when I had come along, there was a song, You Are the Only One for Me. And God sang that song to me when I asked him that question. I heard that song in my heart right then. You are the only one for me. And I knew, without a doubt, that God was telling me that I was his child. So after all that happened, I had another dream. And this dream, I'd been going to a study group with a bunch of the guys from the church, and the study group was under the guise of we'll discuss asking for the ancient path concepts, which happened, but a lot of times we just talked about dreams and what was going on and what God was speaking and this, that, and the other. And through the context of that, I began to form a bond with all the guys from the church. And I had this dream, and in the dream there was this big couch, and in front of it, on the big couch were all the guys from church, right, or from the study group. And in front of it was like this big lava rock flower bed thing in front of it between me and the couch. And in the middle of all of the lava rocks, which are sharp and jagged and all of that, right? In the middle of that was a cross inlaid in pink roses. And I heard the voice say, get that family. And it was at that time that I knew I was supposed to start going to church with all these guys. And the issue is when you get that understanding, when you catch that revelation on the thing that God's saying to you, I use the expression all the time, put a gun to my head, I'm trusting this, right? And it's essential that you put that rubber to the road right there. When you see what God is saying, you trust it with all that you are. And you faith follow through, you grace follow through, you trust that thing and you do it. And that's when you be to do. You become the thing that God's speaking to you. All right, what about you? Are you willing to wait on God to speak and tell you that you're saved? That you're good with him? Are you willing to take all of your bad perceptions and push them away in order to hear God? I remember distinctly getting to a place where I told God, I don't know anymore. I don't know that I can trust what I think I know. I need you, God, and if it's not you, I don't want it. I don't want it. I need you to speak to me. I'm tired of playing games. I don't want to trust what men tell me. I don't want to follow some list of rules. I need you. I need you to speak to me. Are you willing to wait for that? However long it takes for God, it's his program, right? Are you willing to wait for him to tell you whenever and however he chooses that you're saved? Because that's the only way you'll ever know for sure that you're saved. Hey, looky here, man. If you look up and you find yourself, when confronted with the truth of God, trying to put up a defense for what you believe currently, now, that needs to be a red flag on the play. Because God's right and you're wrong. There are no exceptions. And your flesh will never outsmart God. Period. When you see that, shut it down. You can't serve two masters. You tell that flesh voice of yours, hey, you shut your mouth. I'm not listening to you, and you wait on God, and God will speak. I think of that scripture that talks about we cast down all imaginations that exalt themselves against the knowledge of God, or something along those lines. That's really who we are and what we do as Christians. You think about Jesus did nothing apart on his own volition. He only did the thing that his Father said to do. So that's where we're going here. We don't want to listen to the flesh. We want to belong to God in entirety, all that we are. Knowing you're saved, wait on God. Hear His voice and trust it. It's everything. All right, so let's apply this, what we've learned. No shortcuts. You must trust the voice of God. God will speak. You will hear that. See it like He does. Whatever that takes, engage Him in a relationship until you get understanding, until you find that agreement with God where you and Him are on the same page. Trust that and obey it. Don't look now. You've just completed what we call the cycle. From one point of hearing, trusting, obeying to the next point. And what happens is, at some point, when you're doing that, from one cycle to the next cycle, you're walking like a Christian. And at some point, God's going to come and tell you you're His child. But you must continue. Keep on going, man. Keep on trusting God. He'll continue to speak. The more you desire it and the more He speaks, He'll continue to speak more and more. But more important than anything, wait for Him to tell you that you're saved, so that there will never be a doubt. You'll know that you're saved because God Himself told you. Accept no substitutes. Don't tell yourself that you're saved. You can know. Wait on God to tell you. Accept no substitutes. God will speak. You get the revelation. Trust Him. Don't let anybody else tell you you're saved. You can't trust anyone in this world, including yourself, but God. Period. He's the reason for the season, man. Wait for Him to tell you. When He tells you, you will know it, and you will carry that with you through eternity. Not knowing positive or having sufficient evidence to guide me, I feel a supreme delicacy in articulating, for fear of promulgating, something that I can't masticate. If it ain't true, I ain't eating it. Don't you either.